Now let's get to the tier list. I think we need to make some parameters first, right, guys? We need to say, okay, well, where do the first commanders rank in terms of other characters, especially where they are Yonkos and admirals? Here's the thing, and I'm sorry, I chug milk, but I have to disagree with that notion of admirals over Yonko. Just hear me out for a second. The idea of the power system and I mean power system in terms of political power system of One Piece, is the world government and the Marines. They're basically like a team in of themselves, right? The world government and the Marines versus we'll just put it like this: world government and the Marines. And the Marines, we'll put them right there, versus the Yonko and the Yonko. And it's not the four Yonko versus the world government. It's each Yonko versus one another versus the world government. The Yonko themselves have firepower equal to the entire world government. Maybe the Yonko and their entire pirate fleet have wasn't young Whitebeard the first commander of Rock's Pirate? We actually don't know. Hi, Ipa Coco. That's a nice funny name. By the way, to those of you that have joined, welcome. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Happy Mother's Day. I can't say that for sure because they never said who Rox's first commander was. That's the only reason I wouldn't put him on the list. So, hear me out on this. If the Yonko and their entire fleet equals the power of the world government, at least in this case, the Marines, the world government, let's say like CP Division and the Marines, because we'll talk about like the world government itself, which is like the Celestial Dragons and stuff, the God's Knights. It means that these are 5 of the strongest powers on the entire planet. Now, we've seen the difference between Yonkos and Admirals and Yonkos and their first commanders. It's never close. Greenbull was afraid of Shanks, and Shanks is a whole monster in of himself. Kizaru, actually, let me bring up some scans. Let me do that for you guys. Kizaru, Akainu, and Aokiji all fought against Whitebeard. Was it this chapter? They all fought against Whitebeard. Anybody know what chapter Whitebeard fights the admirals? It was 5. It should be a little bit farther up than this. Let's see. Yeah. So Whitebeard does fight. I can't find the chapter right now. What chapter does Whitebeard fight Kizaru? We'll put Kizaru first. Whitebeard fights all 570. Okay. So, hear me out on this. We see by the way, I'm just going to say it. I think off of the previous generation of the Yonko, I think Whitebeard is the weakest. And not because of his overall power output, but because he's sick. Right? I don't see the world government, I don't see any of the other Yonko in this kind of scenario being pushed as far as Whitebeard, just because they aren't as sick as he is, if that makes sense. Like, Whitebeard being old and sick is really holding him back. It is not something that I think people can say isn't enough to affect his combat ability at this point in the story. Like, he's having trouble fighting against Kizaru. He's clearly not hitting him, so Haki is definitely a problem for Whitebeard. But Kizaru's also not able to take down Whitebeard. And the few times that like Kizaru does land like legitimate shots on Whitebeard are after Akainu, I think, kills Ace, where he blasts Whitebeard from behind. It's definitely not good for Whitebeard to see these kind of things. He fights Aokiji, he fights Kizaru, and he fights Akainu. And in all 3 of those examples, I'll put the one against Akainu. Fight Akainu. Against all of those 3 examples, it's only 5 chapters, cool. Against those examples, it's like even the sickest, we won't call him the weakest, but even the sickest and oldest of the Yonko are battling against each of the Marines admirals and not losing. He's causing them enough trouble where they can't put him down individually. They are giving him a tough fight. This panel right here, I will not deny it. Akainu did kind of mess up Whitebeard right here, but it didn't do much to stop him. And you see that Akainu really is struggling heavy. Like, he does get sent down into this massive crevice. Kuzan was about to kill Whitebeard if it wasn't for Jozu. That is fair. I don't know if he was going to kill him, but he definitely was going to cause Whitebeard some trouble. Here's the thing. If Akainu could do this to Whitebeard, and Whitebeard was not, he wasn't phased by this as much as like people may think that he is. There's no, like, he gets blasted, half of his face is shot off, and he just still hits Akainu. If Aokiji is as strong as Akainu and he dealt him this kind of blow, he also blasted him inside of his chest. I don't think Aokiji could have killed Akainu. 100%, I do not think Kuzan or Borzolino could have done any better against Whitebeard. Because they're all relative. It took a heavy fight between Akainu and Aokiji lasted 10 days. These two are relative, at least around this point in the story. So you can definitely see that a Yonko, even an old sick Yonko, almost using only his Devil Fruit abilities, is stronger, or at least is strong enough to where they cannot just 1v1 him. Remember, Whitebeard had also taken damage before this. I think that the most important thing that we need to set upon is that, like, what do we know is the basis of a first commander, right? A first commander is able to at least combat against an admiral, and at the same time, because we see that with Marco, where they're at least able to take hits. So Kizaru shoots these beams of light at Marco, and Marco takes the hits. Now, I don't want to call this a durability feat for Marco. I do not want to call this a durability feat for Marco, even though he withstood it, because Marco is clearly capable of regenerating with his flames, right? I think that's fair. Marco is completely capable of regenerating with his flames, so I think it's more or less he took the hits, he tanked the hits, and then recovered from them. I don't think it's just that Marco is able to, like, take on Yasakani no Magatama. That was really bad. Yasakani no Magatama. I think that Marco's able to tank these hits, and then with his endurance and his regenerating abilities from his Phoenix powers, he's able to just, like, you know, phase them off. Marco and Katakuri are kind of like our first basis for first commanders, right? Katakuri is definitely the strongest person in Whole Cake Isle if you remove Big Mom. There was nobody there that was going to give Luffy as tough of a fight as Katakuri, and I think a lot of it, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think a lot of it, I'm going to put Katakuri right away in the can beat a warlord. I think that Future Sight really does a lot for Katakuri. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. Future Sight does so much for Katakuri, because Luffy wasn't so much slower than Katakuri that he could never tag him. It's just that the combination of Katakuri's superior speed, granted, because he could keep up with Gear 4 Snakeband without any buffs, and Future Sight is what really did Katakuri in. Because if you remember, when Katakuri fought Luffy, I'll just open up another one. We'll just open up another thing. When Katakuri fought Luffy, after he was angry and lost his, I might just, you know what? Let me do this first. I'm just going to start this so I don't have to always keep coming back to it. After Katakuri, Luffy saw him while he was eating his merienda. He lost his shit. He was like, bro, I'm going to fuck you up. I'm going to kill everybody near me. Yeah, I'm going to kill everybody that just saw my face, and I'm definitely going to kill you. He was angry, and as I explained multiple times before, and I'm sure you guys know this, okay, there we go, merienda. If Luffy is still able to tag him while he's angry because he can't use Future Sight on account of his rage, let's call it. You could say again, Katakuri seeing red, he's not thinking about dodging, all of that stuff, but it really goes to show how much his Future Sight does, because unlike before, where he was easily able to stop Luffy from going Gear 4th, now, like, Luffy is able to transform and everything, and he's landing hits on him. Hear me out. I don't think Marco is the baseline, and I will get to why. I think Katakuri is the baseline. And the reason why Katakuri is the baseline is because we see the most from what a first commander is at least able to do. We see at least what a first commander is able to do against a warlord. The strongest opponent that Luffy fought up until that point was Doflamingo. And, well, Doflamingo, then Cracker. And Doflamingo was afraid of Kaido, and he definitely wasn't going to fight anybody in Big Mom's crew that was like at least one of the Sweet Generals. I think that Luffy was at least below the first 3 commanders of a Yonko crew. By the point that he fought, up until the point that he fought Cracker, because he needed help to defeat Cracker. He needed Nami to help. Let me just gather my thoughts. He needed Nami to help weaken crackers to make them soggy so he could eat them. Otherwise, he couldn't do it. Katakuri relies a lot on his dodging because, and I've said this before and I will say it 100% of the time, he always landed more hits on Luffy. Luffy is in a worse position this entire time from Katakuri, and it's clearly not a case of Luffy needing more firepower. It's that Katakuri, you could argue it's because he hasn't been hit in years that he doesn't have the durability to keep up with a lot of these attacks, but it's clearly doing a lot more to him than everything Katakuri did to Luffy, right? If Luffy needs Gear 4 to deal this much damage to Katakuri, it clearly shows that Luffy is capable of at least taking a, let's call it Gear 4 level damage in base. He's clearly capable of taking at least Gear 4 damage in base. And that doesn't exactly have to translate to his AP or his destructive capacity or speed, because ultimately Luffy is a tank. Up until the point that Luffy fights Kaido, by the time he gets one shot, that is a massive. This panel right here is the reason why Katakuri is the baseline. Katakuri could not put down Luffy. Now, again, Luffy is a tank. He is able to take hits. I have never seen Luffy be just put down in one hit before like this. You could maybe argue Rob Lucci when he fought them in the mayor's Iceberg's mansion, but no. Or, I guess, what was it? City Hall. But no. This is the first time Luffy has been legitimately one-shot. Because he was such a massive wall for Luffy previously, and now he got completely power clipped, especially since if Kaido one-shot this version of Luffy, he is absolutely stomping out. He might just die. I'm going to be honest with you. Katakuri might just straight up die if Kaido hits him with a Thunder Bagua. It's kind of crazy, but he didn't put out Luffy in like an 11-hour fight. He's not taking a single one of Kaido's hits, especially when like Luffy, I think somebody counted them. Luffy landed like 30-something hits on him. So he is our basis. He can beat a warlord. I think he has a very good chance against beating Boa Hancock, based off of the minimal scaling that we have for her. He has the chances of beating Boa Hancock, and I think he has the options of also beating some of the other warlords, like obviously Moria, obviously Doflamingo, definitely Buggy when he was a warlord, but he's a Yonko now. He's way too strong for Katakuri. He landed 17 hits, and Katakuri couldn't take that. Katakuri landed, I don't know how many hits on Luffy, and way more than that, definitely, and Luffy got one shot by Kaido. So do with that what you will. Next up, I think that I'm just gonna say it, Sabo sucks. Sabo fucking sucks. I didn't know where the hell to put him, but he definitely stands at less than Katakuri. And I will say this, there isn't a lot of information to go off of Sabo besides him sort of getting almost one shot by the elders. What chapter does Sabo fight Emu? Let's just go with that. Chapter 1085. Ooh, actually we have this open here for that. We don't need to go back to this. 1085. Sabo could not do anything against the five elders, and he couldn't do... I've seen a lot of people overhype Sabo, right? He hit him with a fire fist, didn't do nothing. This man right here, Emu, got really upset and just chomped it. You see this right here? This is Emu just straight up eating Sabo's fire fist. And then, not too much afterwards, Sabo running at what I would assume is top speed, because, let's be honest, you're running away from, like, the center of the world government as one of the most dangerous criminals on the planet. You are running for your life. I'm not going to say he's running at, like, light speed or anything, but I think Sabo, as fast as he can run, he's going full speed and, boom, gets immediately blitzed. Immediately blitzed. Bleeding, hurt, can't do anything but straight up say, yo, we're not going to make it out of here. I got to run, bro. It is okay. I chug milk. Just hear me out on this. Okay, just hear me out. I know it sounds like cope, but gotta let a man know when he's putting out good work. Thank you. He was holding out his own against an admiral. Was he? Well, to be fair, Fujitora, as an admiral, he also doesn't seem to be an admiral that is like trying to kill these pirates. It seems like he's just trying to capture them, and he doesn't need to output that much force, especially in a civilian-based area. You know what I mean? Where they're both like fighting it out, but ultimately like either I capture you or I don't. Like clearly there is a villain here. It is Doflamingo, and if you guys escape, especially after you guys tried to save all these people, I don't know. I think there could be an. Didn't he win against Jesus Burgess though? Who? Shiryu? I don't know if they ever fought. That could be a good question. That might be up for debate. I don't know. That was Imu, not the Gorosei. To be honest, Imu might deal double the damage, like an opposite of Blackbeard's Delphi. That could be the case. It's a lot of speculations, but truth be told, Sabo didn't do a lot against them, and the only real person that he fights besides a not completely serious fight against an admiral is Jesus Burgess. And Jesus Burgess, especially at this point in the story, if he can deal this much damage to Law's crew, I probably think that he could deal with a warlord. Maybe Jesus Burgess, by the time he gets a strong fruit, could beat Doflamingo. I'm not sure, but there's not a lot of information on him. As for Sabo, he did this to Jesus Burgess. He basically gave him a permanent makeover, so I would say that he's at least stronger than, and they might be at least relative at this point in time. Especially since Jesus Burgess didn't have a devil fruit before, and that kind of was the difference between them. Remember, even though there are levels 2 hockey, Sabo, he basically was running on the same system as Jesus Burgess, just armament and observation hockey. The only difference was he had a devil fruit and a pretty strong one at that. I think a devil fruit could make enough of a difference for Jesus Burgess to like give him at least a good fight, because we don't really know a lot of. By the way, guys, I'm also going to be going over some movie feats because it helps tie this in just a tiny bit better. I know that they're non-canon, and I'm not going to, and if you guys don't think that they matter as a whole, I do want to say that movies, at least within the time of a point of the story where they do appear, they do seem to be relative to where these characters should be at power-wise. Like, Zoro cutting up a meteor could be a similar feat to him cutting up a giant man made out of stone, multiple times, mind you, that is about to basically take out a city. So, I don't know. Yeah, Fuji was holding back, right. If Katakuri was in Wano, would he gotten stronger? He may have gotten stronger if he trained. Or if he had gotten some kind of like hockey bloom like Luffy did. Because to be honest, Law did not train whatsoever throughout the entirety of Wano. Law did not train whatsoever, and this man went from losing to Doflamingo to fighting this behemoth. Or at least hurting him. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, Law does, hot take, but Law stands above, I'd say like 70% of this list. Truth be told, I think Law stands above like 70% of this list. Sanji and Egghead got eye-diffed and bite-diffed by Gorosei. Sabo, on the other hand, did not get bite-diffed. Also, forgot Sanji got kicked by an admiral. I do not see my glorious goat Sabo getting no-diffed by an admiral. When did Sanji... Well, to be fair, Sanji also did kick away a beam of light from Kizaru, like completely dispersed it. I don't think let's look at that chapter, by the way. I don't think that he did. It was stated somewhere that he displaced the particles of light. Like, it was something crazy. They said that, like, oh, we're gonna have to like rewrite physics books over that. To be fair, that is kind of crazy if Sanji's able to do that. Okay, right here. I'm sorry, but this feat right here is insane. Are you kidding me? That was a laser beam. Like, even fucking Frankie can't believe that. And he says love is stronger than light, which is kind of corny, but this really does shoot up Sanji's stocks. Like, whatever the hell happened to Sanji before, this really just shoots up his stocks, at least against an admiral. And here's the thing. The Gorosei are way more powerful than the admirals. I think that's very clear. Admirals do not stand a chance against Gorosei, but if you want to lowball them and say that a Gorosei is about as strong as an admiral at the very least, this is a very impressive feat then. Like, the more you buff the Goroseis, the less impressive this seems, but the fact that they say if that's true, then physics as we know it is dead. Like, it is an insane thing for Sanji to just straight up kicked away one of these attacks, especially when, well, we don't really see it, but, and I hope that the anime does clarify this a bit later, but we don't know if Sanji actually has his leg ignited. I think Sanji's emotion boosts his haki, hence is powerful. Yeah, it could be possible. I think that in this case, Sanji's love, which could be translated into willpower, you know, because his will to protect women above all things, I think it could actually give him a massive amp. Vegapunk's boots carried hard. Probably, true. But, yeah, I think that right now, Sabo just hasn't shown me anything that would make me put him above Katakuri, especially since all he really did was get, after the Jesus Burgess fight, all he really does is fight an admiral who you could argue was not trying, and he also did sort of get no diffed by the Gorosei, which at that point, that's kind of obvious with what we've seen, right? I don't think it's impossible to say that, you know, you could definitely switch these two around, right? This is not definitive. So next up, Killer. Yeah, not gonna lie. I think Killer, if Killer were to fight Katakuri, okay, this is not, again, this is not 100% like a who would beat who tier list, but, because I think that Katakuri would give Killer a good fight, but, yeah, he hurt Kaido. I'm sorry. He hurt Kaido. Out of everything that you could possibly say for this guy, he did do a lot more to Kaido than I think, let me see if I could find it. This right here is more damage than Luffy did against Kaido. And remember, Luffy used his strongest attack in the anime, and he hit him with a barrage with a Kong ore gun in the manga. So, yeah. I'm not gonna say like this dealt a lot to Kaido, but he clearly is showing a lot more of a reaction than anything I think Katakuri could ever even hope to dream of. Extreme to high div? I'm glad that you guys aren't saying I'm on Copia, because I've been sniffing it a lot lately ever since I started thinking about this debate. Like, this could be a potential versus battle as well. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think if Killer does this attack to Kaido, again, it didn't do a lot to Kaido, but I think it might straight up kill Katakuri if it ever lands. Scyther Sonic, I think Katakuri would straight up fucking die if he got hit by this, or at least he would not get up from it very easily. Mid-diff, leave the donut man alone. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, once you really, like, contextualize Wano, Katakuri sucks. And that's the crazy part. Like, if this guy can invalidate everything that Pain can fucking do, and I will stand by that video 100%, I don't think at this point, unless they come out with, like, brand new chapters that give Pain some insane fucking feats, I don't think, you just completely warp, by the way, the entire scale of Naruto, power scaling of Naruto. Yeah, this guy sucks in the One Piece verse. Just want to say it. Ben Beckman. Ben Beckman did put Kizaru in a state where he did force him to raise up his hands. Now, what could that possibly mean? It doesn't mean a lot, you know. It just means that he got the drop on Katakuri. I'm going to be completely frank with you guys. All Ben Beckman did here was... let me see if I can find the chapter. Does anybody know the chapter when the Shanks pirates show up? The Red Hair Pirates? Oh, okay, no. We have to go a little bit farther back. Probably like, what, 4 more chapters? Yeah, it's about... Let's go 5 more chapters back. Oh, backstory. Right. Ooh. Was it 77? Okay, unthinkable situation. Okay, all of these assholes, yada yada yada, and what's his face should be showing up right... Okay, this panel right here. Hold it right there, Kizaru. Whoa there, Ben Beckman. Okay. This does not mean that Ben Beckman is stronger than Kizaru or could fight Kizaru. It does mean that he can fight Kizaru. I think that with the information given out, he is anywhere between loses to an admiral to can give an admiral a good fight. But for the sake of it, what is the statement? The statement is that... Ooh, open up another... I will probably do that for later. All he does... This is it. This is all he does. This is where a lot of his power scaling comes in, at least for like the high end. He also took away Eustace Kid's arm, but Eustace Kid was kind of unquantifiable beforehand before he lost his arm. You know what I mean? He definitely was at least... But, blocked. I'm sorry, is somebody blocked? Kizaru wasn't taking Ben seriously. Ben has statements stating he is relative to Shanks. X-Room, can you give me where the statements are? Maybe like a chapter number. I'm not trying to use supplementary materials for this, by the way. If it's stated like in the 4 billion volume, like for film Red, I'm not sure if that point that is technically canon to the story, so we could add it. But this and him being the one who took out Kid's arm, especially when this was somewhere around the 2-year time skip when Kid had already lost his arm, it's not very impressive because Kid, if they couldn't even get past the first commander, that's pretty obvious. I don't think that a fresh out of post-time skip Kid or wherever the hell before he got his arm taken off, I don't even think that Kid, again, there's nothing to go off of this besides where Kid was at before they go into the rooftop. I don't think that version of Kid would have been able to fight Katakuri either, so this is really all we have to go off of. And what basically this means is that he got the drop on Kizaru, and Kizaru has to be weary of him. He can at least cause Kizaru to be weary of him. That's where I think this really does lie. I think there was also a feat where like Kizaru does escape. Oh, crap, looks like he still wants to go, and then Kizaru just leaves and just does what he wants. You see what I mean? Ben is the moon to Shank's sun, according to the Vivre card, whatever that's supposed to mean. That isn't a statement. That could be probably like the darkness to Shanks' light, since Beckman seems to be a lot more sulky and Shanks seems to be a lot more upbeat when it comes to like, character personality. I don't know what that means. That doesn't really translate to anything in terms of power, but Kizaru was able to get out of Ben's limit, a range limit, or at least attack range. So yeah, he was able to just do as he pleases and shoot out those beams. If I had to be honest, not that one. If I had to be honest, Ben Beckman would probably either lose to an Admiral, if I'm being as pessimistic as I possibly can be. Given just that information, especially since Kizaru could just get away from him, I think that, yeah, he probably loses to an Admiral. But at the best, he might give an Admiral a good fight. Although, I'm willing to put him at not enough information as of now. Next up would be Marco. Actually, first let's do Beppo. There we go. So, King loses to an Admiral. Right. Here's the thing about King. He is someone who cannot be hurt by normal means. Like, unless you are someone with advanced Conqueror's Haki or have some way of bypassing durability, I don't see a lot of ways that you can hurt King. I don't see a lot of ways that you're beating King. Marco, who was capable of fighting with Kizaru, was able to at least tank Kizaru's attacks, and Marco has some decent showings, especially like in the War Arc in Marineford. He's able to, fight against Kizaru, not to the extent where he can beat him, but he's at least able to tank the hits, jump in and, perform some feats. Marco is able to fight both King and Queen at the same time. If you think that all three of these characters are around the same power level, the fact that he's able to fight a first commander and a second commander at the same time is extremely expressive, especially since he wasn't really hurting King, right? What chapter does Marco fight King? Marco fight King and Queen. I'm not going to do that because then it's going to be King and Queen. We need a chapter. 1006 to 1022. Let's head there real quick. We're going to go to 1006 first because I think that's when he first pops up. 1006. Okay. Where does he show up? Okay, 1 second. Okay, so Queen is about to fire a beam of light. I'm not saying he never fired it though, so we're not gonna say light speed feats or anything here. But Queen fires a beam of light. Here comes Master Queen's beam attack, and not only is Marco able to hit him before he fires it, but it also hurt Queen, and Queen could fight Big Mom, right? Like he could draw out blood from Queen, who fought a weakened Big Mom. He fought Olin. We'll call her Olin, not Big Mom. Marco loses to Admiral. He can clash once or twice, but if the Admirals are stronger, then it's GG's. 100% agree. I think that Marco would definitely lose to a commander, but the fact that he's able to hurt Queen, especially Queen, I wouldn't say Queen is exactly like the weakest guy. Like, it took Sanji getting cyborg upgrades from the Germa army just to beat this guy, and it was pretty quick. I won't say that Queen is like him either, but he's no slouch. He may look stupid, his abilities may be quirky, but Queen is a bit of a problem. And here is Marco, just straight up, let's see it for 1 second, because I need to confirm something. Yeah, Queen doesn't generate a beam either. Like, you don't see it generate in between chapters. He just straight up fires one, and Marco dodges it too. So he's at least relativistic in terms of speed. And his durability, like I said before, is nothing crazy, but Marco is just straight up able to regrow his arm like a Logia. And he's also able to blast King completely away. Again, this doesn't hurt King, but at least while he has his flame on, and the difference between flame on and off is massive. But the fact that he was able to get like the drop on Queen to the point where like you see him visibly shocked, I don't know. I think that Queen and King are no slouches, and the fact that Marco's able to do this well against the two of them, especially since he just straight up knocked them away, is impressive in of itself. Yeah, like when Robin immediately could have used Ammonia Floor. It's for plot. Exactly. Marco could probably beat Queen in a 1v1 and could outlast him. I 100% agree. I think that Marco is definitely on the stronger end of the first commander scales. And as for King, listen, probably some people are not gonna want to hear me say it. Hey, if you joined the stream, welcome. I see that we got a slightly more viewers. Hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day. Hope you had a wonderful day. By the way, if you guys know any music that I can like post up in like in the background for the stream, would really appreciate that. You know, just some stuff for like you guys to like listen to. Maybe I'll do that for the next stream. So, King. I'll be honest. First of all, well, right here. Zoro is by far the strongest first commander that we know of as of now. You know, you don't count these two bastards yet. Zoro is the strongest of the first commanders. If we're talking about the new gen, yeah. 100%. Oh, forgot to do this. Zoro is an absolute fucking monster. Zoro fought on the rooftop. And not only did Zoro fight on the rooftop, but he also, I don't think I can show this. I'll probably, you know what, this stream is not like I'm monetized or anything. Doesn't matter. Zoro rooftop. While everyone was dodging Kaido's attacks, it wasn't this one, but, well, actually, this is a feat in and of itself, but the conquest of the sea, the fact that he could send one of Kaido's Dragon Demolition Twister blades, he could just swerve it away while everybody dodged them, and then he is the only person that could permanently scar Kaido. He could permanently scar Kaido, unlike Rooftop Luffy, who before Conqueror's Haki. It is an insane feat, if you ask me. He hits him with Dead Man's Game, or Dead Man's Gambit, and then he said, this wound will remain. He permanently scarred Kaido. Now, there could be an argument that you make up that's kind of weird, where it's like, well, that was already just opening up one of Kaido's old wounds, which the Akazaya 9 attempted to do, but they didn't. The Akazaya 9 did not actually open up that old wound. Zoro just straight up made a brand new one. He said, this wound will remain with me. He's not talking about, oh, you made the wound bigger. No, this new wound will remain with me. Not to mention, it's also bigger. That's the best Zoro can do, and that's the best that anyone in the rooftop did up until Luffy unlocked Conqueror's Haki. Advanced Conqueror's Haki. I think that, and the difference between Zoro and every single one of these characters besides these two and potentially Mihawk is that Zoro has Advanced Conqueror's Haki. It is such a massive boost, I don't think people understand how big it is. Like, it made Luffy go from somebody who could hit Kaido with attacks that were too shallow, to somebody that can actually draw real blood out and impact Kaido heavily. It's a greater than Gear 4th multiplier. Like, Conqueror's Haki is better than Gear 4th in terms of just straight up multipliers. No, he doesn't. The thing about Law deserving Conqueror's Haki over Kid is that Law thinks about planning too much. If you look at guys that have Conqueror's Haki, they're not really planners. They're more or less just doers. It's like, don't plan things out, just do it. And if you lose, come back and do it again. unless you get killed, which a lot of people did. But anyway, I think Zoro losing mid-diff to an Admiral. I think that Zoro could definitely hurt Kizaru or Aokiji or even Akainu pre-time skip a lot more. I think he could hurt these characters and definitely deal them substantial damage, especially since he can keep up with a Yonko. Like, let's be honest, Zoro was not only the only one who reacted to the conquest of the sea, he was also able to tank it. I'm gonna be real with you. This guy, Katakuri, he is dying to Conquest of the Sea. I don't care how much mochi he puts up, he would have died to that attack. And the simple fact is, King made Zoro wonder if he could win. There was a chapter where Zoro said, let me see if I can find it. It was, so Luffy became Gear 5th around 144, so he should have won around here. Sanji versus Queen, okay. And then Zoro versus King. A few chapters before this, Zoro ended up wondering, yeah, around here. Zoro ended up wondering if he could, I already wielding one of mine. Let's see. That would have been closed. I'd be put to death if I didn't put my armament hockey in time. How he's still alive, he blew himself up. I can't find the exact statement, but there is a statement somewhere here that says that Zoro wonders if he could actually beat King. And this is, again, before Zoro unlocks Advanced Conqueror's Haki again, but the difference between a Zoro with Advanced Conqueror's Haki is big, and without Advanced Conqueror's Haki is not only massive, but Zoro without Advanced Conqueror's Haki is still able to keep up with Kaido, and especially a lot better than Gear 4th Luffy did, something that even Katakuri couldn't do. I think that any one of these three characters gives Katakuri an extremely high diff fight, and the fact is that King was able to perception blitz Zoro. At the point of their fight, just slightly before it ended, when King tried to hit Zoro with a giant drop kick, he straight up just left Zoro's gaze. That is a perception blitz at the very bare minimum with this flames off, which you could say that he's fighting at least around somewhere. You could argue that he is fighting at least around a speed similar to Hybrid Kaido or Luffy. You know what I mean? Where Hybrid Kaido could blitz a pre-Conqueror's Haki Zoro, pre-Advanced Conqueror's Haki Zoro, and now King is also able to blitz a post-Advanced Conqueror's Haki Zoro with his flame off. I think that a fight between these two, Katakuri and King, will always end up winning for King because there's almost nothing Katakuri has to even force King to take off his flames, besides maybe Future Sight, but at that point I think the attacks are landing. And Rob Luchi. Right here. By the way, these two, I'll put them right here. And Sheer Copium, this is where I think the tier list if I were to make the tier list by myself, I think this is where I would put it. So, King just straight up got shit on by an Admiral. King just straight up got curb stomped by an Admiral. Granted, the context behind that scene was that, what chapter did Greenbull beat King and Queen? 1053. Let's go there. There is context behind this in that Queen and King they were in bandages. Alexa, stop. They were covered in bandages. However, Alexa, stop. Sorry about that, guys. And King and Queen are clearly like wrapped up in like bandages, so they probably haven't fully healed from especially from Udon prison. However, this is pretty bad. Excuse me. This is pretty freaking bad. Like, there's just nothing these guys can do. He is Greenbull, which we don't know where he exactly stands around the other admirals, but let's just say it's around a similar tier level. He straight up just took down all of the beast pirates at once, and again, King and Queen are in pain, but one thing that I could want to say is that you don't really see King's flames on his back. Greenbull beat versus King and Queen. Let me see this real quick. Let's just look this up real quick. Can you guys hear this, by the way? If not, let me know if you guys can hear this. For sure. Zeus would and Rob beats King. I'll get to that in a second. Let's see. Okay. So he takes out the father. And just 2 more. So, by the way, this is extremely impressive for Queen, but King also has his flame off. I'm not sure if Greenbull would have been able to pierce through King the way he would have with his flame on. And the flame on could also be a thing of whether or not King is even at full strength, since he's clearly exhausted to an extent. Like, he's already sweating and everything. So I don't think that King and Queen can beat an Admiral, at least within the feats that they've given us. However, I think with a flame on, King may not win, but I think that he would give the Admirals a tough fight if they can't force him to lose his flame. Okay, you guys heard it? Perfect. I never streamed before, so yeah. Never streamed before like this, so I wasn't sure if you guys could hear it. But thank you for letting me know. So yeah. A full health king, I'm coping. I am coping right now. Let me tell you guys. I think his flame on could give the Admirals at least a annoying fight. A fight where, since none of the Admirals have advanced Conqueror's Haki, I don't see many ways that they could also take him down, if that makes sense. If Robin farts, Zeus would suck it and pass out. What the fuck? Sleepy is. Just me as a writer myself. Do you find Robin not learning / teaching from Dragon strange as hell over 2 years? I don't think it was Dragon's job to teach Robin. I think the circumstances that had Robin meet with the Revolutionary Army, she did get stronger and they did offer her training, which is more than I can say would have probably have happened if they weren't kind people. They don't really owe Robin much, and I'm not sure if Dragon would have really have wanted to interact with one of his Luffy's crewmates. But yeah. The thing is that Rob Luchi, I got a comment before, I'm not sure if that person is here, but I got a comment before asking like, hey, I would like Rob Luchi to get some, I would love it if Rob Luchi got some love for this, right? And I don't think Rob Lucci's trash. I don't. I think Rob Luchi is on the more impressive end of the first Commander tier list, since he did fight Gear 5th Luffy. And just hear me out on this. He was able to fight a Yonko commander. I mean, a Yonko. He was able to fight a Yonko. The anime did a lot for Rob Luchi, and it helped him get 2 licks. He got 2 hits on Luffy that he probably should never have gotten. At least he never got in the manga. Like, it was really bad for this man in the manga. He got bullied. When he said this would be fun, I immediately thought, yeah, for one of you. This isn't going to be fun for the 2 of you. But the fact that he landed that 1 hit, okay, may not mean much, and it may not mean much at the end of the day, but he was relentless on Luffy to the point where even if Luffy was joking around, Luffy could have one-shot him at any point, but he was always pressing him, is what I'm getting at. Rob Luchi always tried to press Luffy to an extent. And the simple fact is that when he fights Zoro, let's be honest. What chapter does Zoro fight Rob Luchi? Fight Luchi? Let's see. 110. I see a lot of people arguing, and I'm going to be honest with you, for the people that say, if one of you are in here, the people that are coping saying that like, oh, Zoro's not going all out because of his bandana, I don't think that is inherently true either, right? Wait, what chapter was it? Oh, it gave me 110. Well, whatever. So, I hope you guys can see this image. Zoro is clearly taking the fight seriously. He is clearly taking the fight seriously to the point where he has to use advanced Conqueror's Haki. And if Rob Luchi can keep up with a version of Zoro that is healthy without 30 broken... Because remember, Zoro beat King with at least 30 broken bones, and part of him got pierced by what he essentially called a beam of light when King used his tempura. Zoro is perfectly healthy now, and he's at least being forced to use not only advanced conqueror's haki, but Rob Lucci does not go down for multiple chapters. Now, you could call this a rage amp. You could call this a rage amp. You could call this whatever. But the simple fact is that Zoro, once he has enough motivation, could straight up blitz Lucci. He could straight up blitz Lucci, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not saying that this was a one-shot, obviously not. Like, Lucci's still standing. But he is clearly upset. Like, at this point, this panel tells me that, like, Lucci is stunned. Lucci does not know what happened. He just took the hit, and he's like, what the fuck just dealt me that damage? Like, you move on to this next chapter, and he's clearly not knocked out, but whatever you want to say that this expression is for Lucci, rage, he's about to turn up, rage, whatever, he's clearly frustrated. Lucci is clearly frustrated by this point, and like Zoro says, he's still standing. It wasn't enough, but this isn't something that Lucci's just going to walk away from either. Like, he clearly cut him up 3 ways straight through his chest. He'll do much or any damage. It won't take long to cut him out. I've only plug and control and change the way that he fights and focus on survival. That's fair. Why isn't Jinbei on this tier list? I understand Sanji not being because he's number 4, but Jinbei is I don't think that Jinbei has ever shown defeats that would put him at a Yonko first tier commander. Just because I don't think he's fought anybody that is of that level. He's fought who's who. That's kind of it. Like, being able to like knock away a Yonko, you know what? I think Jinbei would be fine. If I had to put Jinbei, and I can throw him in later if I take a screenshot of this. If I put Jinbei, I would probably put him loses to an Admiral. I put him below Rob Lucci, maybe above Marco, and just say that, yeah, he maybe around Marco. Now that we're on the subject of Zoro, there's a big hole in his chest. Take Hyozo. Let's let him talk. I'm almost finished. God damn. No, we're not done. We're not done. Reminder, Law versus Zoro, but I'd almost have to sleep. Okay, my apologies. So I'll get to that right now. So Law versus Zoro. So here's the simple fact of it. Law and Eustace Kid did take out Big Mom. They won the fight. They did not defeat Big Mom. I think that's a very big distinction that has to be made because Big Mom was still conscious after Big Mom falls into lava. Whatever. Let's do that. Law and Kid defeat Big Mom. So they were able to at least remove her from the battlefield. If there's one thing that you can definitely say about these two fighting together is that they could potentially remove a Yonko from the battlefield given, you know, the circumstances. She is still conscious. This isn't enough to take her out. She hits the explosives. She hits the explosives in Onigashima that were frozen, but they still do go off. And ultimately, all this means is that she was still conscious even after she was falling. Like, until she at least hit the lava, Big Mom was conscious. I think that Law and Kid in a very high diff match are about the strength level of an Admiral. It could be Cope. It could be Cope. But if I had to put, let's just use Beppo. If I had to put Law somewhere on this tier list, I'd put him either around Garp and Rayleigh or maybe even above. Because they should be at least the tier of an Admiral. Since this is what I would say would be the difference between 2 Admirals and 3 Admirals. Think about it like this. They could remove Big Mom from a battlefield, but they could not take down Big Mom. Like, they could not bring down her HP down to 0 on their own, giving everything that they had. However, if you were to throw in, let's say, an Admiral in there, a 3rd Admiral, then it becomes more interesting. Then you think, well, if he takes 3 Admirals to fight a Yonko, wouldn't that just make these 2 the power level of a Admiral? You can 100% say that you can 100% say that Kizaru or Kuzan or Akainu probably beat them in a fight. I don't know. But the fact is that, like, Law did fight against the Yonko himself, by himself, with Blackbeard. He didn't do terribly. Law did not do terribly against Blackbeard. The only problem there, Law versus Blackbeard, the only problem there was that Blackbeard ended up having a second devil. Look at this for a second. They are clearly clashing. The Quake fruit versus Law's Awakening. And we may never even see Blackbeard awaken the devil fruit. I don't know where we will go with this. I hope that Blackbeard does eventually awaken his devil fruit. It definitely will give him a lot more power than he does need. But yeah, Blackbeard is clearly not. If it's just the Gura Gura no Mi and no second devil fruit, Blackbeard is not coming out of that fight completely unscathed. Not even just completely unscathed. This facial expression right here is one where he's like, at least to me, I interpret it as, this guy's a lot stronger than I thought, holy shit. And he only starts to smile after he pulls off his cheat code, which is the fucking Yami Yami no Mi. That one devil fruit made the difference between the two of them. And I think that's one devil fruit is the difference that Blackbeard needs for Conqueror's Haki. Because I don't think Blackbeard has Conqueror's Haki. I think Blackbeard is someone who, the way that he's chosen to go about, cannot have Conqueror's Haki. And to make up for the difference of not having advanced Conqueror's Haki, or any of the crazy shit that these characters might eventually get, truth be told, whether it's 2 awakenings or a second devil fruit, Blackbeard needs something to go into the final arc, because I don't see him. The amount of trouble that Law gave him, all things considered, was way more than someone like Luchi would have given to Luffy. You know what I mean? And again, I think that if Law and Kid are the power level of an Admiral, I think that they could beat Rob Luchi in a high diff fight. However, all of it really